and you can't figure out why you're getting certain results in dating or in relationships, you are going to have some insight after this. Trust me. Hey y'all, welcome to Boundaries and Grace. My name is Taylor Chandler. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, helping you break negative relationship patterns by shifting your attachment style. Hey y'all, I'm back. I'm back for a new season or a new episode. We're talking about attachment styles today. We're going to do a bit of a review. My name is Taylor Chandler. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I'm a secure attachment therapist, helping people shift from insecure to secure attachment. Hi. Hey, y'all. It's been a while. It's been like a month or so or more. It's been like more than a month, and I've enjoyed my time. The dating pool apparently is still a mess, so I'm going to come and try to clean some things up. Okay, I'm going to try to clean some things up. We're going to talk about attachment today, y'all. This is my podcast, Boundaries and Grace. Boundaries and Grace is on Apple and Spotify. This is the 11th season. I have over 100 episodes there. There is a lot to catch up on if you have never been on the podcast. But if you have not been on the podcast, this is the perfect episode to start because we are going to do an attachment style review. You know, I don't like to just talk about what is going on. I really like to help you understand why something is going on and how to get it to be something different. Oh, I feel excited. Attachment is a major key in having healthier relationships, definitely dating healthier. It's not about an opinion. It's not about personal experience. It's about science, okay? It's about facts. It's not about what someone thinks or how, it's not about lifestyle. It's not about preferences. It's about facts, like how to actually, regardless of who you are, regardless of what kind of lifestyle you want to live, this is just how anybody can have healthier relationships. And that's one of the reasons why I love it. It works for when I'm talking about everybody, I mean everybody. So let's go ahead and get into it, y'all. We're a little warmed up. Today we're going to talk about indicators of each attachment style. We're going to talk about the origin of your attachment style, triggers, how each attachment style tries to manage their trigger, like tries to solve the problem. We're going to talk about the goal of secure attachment and how to change. Okay. If you never heard about attachment, by the time you're done with this episode, and you can't figure out why you're getting certain results in dating or in relationships, you are going to have some insight after this. Trust me. Let's talk about the attachment styles. If you have pen and paper, I recommend you grab it. Y'all, there are two different categories of attachment styles. We've got our insecure category and we've got our secure category. We've got three that we're going to talk about on the insecure side. Okay, when you hear it, go ahead and type it, put in your notes, go ahead and somebody type it in the comments. Thank you. I love the interaction. It does so much for me. So we've got the Anxious-Preoccupied type, AP, Anxious-Preoccupied. We're going to talk about that style today. That's an insecure attachment style. The Dismissive-Avoidant attachment style, the DA. The Fearful-Avoidant, the FA. Those are three insecure attachment styles. We've got one attachment style on the secure side. It's the secure attachment style, okay? That's it. You got one option. It's not multiple choice. On the insecure style, you could be a couple different things, couple little mix and match, okay? On the secure side, you got one option. Secure. So let's talk about the anxious-preoccupied type. If you hear anything, y'all, if you hear anything that sounds like you or you in the recent past, you now or if we saw this in you in the last 365 days, okay, I would like for you to identify yourself in the chat. A big part of this whole healing thing, which is a very abstract word, by the way, healing. A big part of this whole healing process is being honest and allowing some things that we have shame about to be voiced, okay? So just if you hear anything that sounds like you or this was you in the last 365 days, I need you to please identify yourself. A lot of people got these issues, y'all. A lot of people got these issues. And the thing about insecurities is when we feel insecure about something, we think that we're the only one that's got it going on and you think you crazy. Or you're the only one that acts like this or has thoughts like that. And one of the things, when I used to do my reattach group, 6 to 8 week group on shifting your attachment style. One of the thing that was consistently said every single time I did that group was, I thought I was the only one who thought like that. I thought I was the only one who felt like that. I thought I was the only one who jumped to that kind of conclusion. Okay. And the thing is, you're not. We got a lot of people, I would say most people in the world got insecure attachment styles, but it's the shame and the guilt that comes with behaving in these ways that keeps us quiet. And we just need to start saying, this is me. That's me. Okay. Thank you. Thank y'all for agreeing to identify yourself. Let's talk about the anxious-preoccupied style, the AP. This person reaches compulsively for others when stressed or scared. Compulsively meaning there is almost no time. There is almost no thinking time between an incident and your action. Okay. So I compulsively reach for the other person when stressed or scared. Okay. You're not sure if that's you or not. This person ruminates about relationship problems, like between me and you. I can't stop thinking about it. And I keep thinking about the impact that problem's going to have on us. When we have an issue between us, it's hard for me to sleep. It's hard for me to eat. It's hard for me to focus on other things. I am compulsively checking my phone. I'm checking your Instagram. I pulled up my burner account. Some of y'all I'm not going to ask you to identify if you got a burner. Okay. Compulsively, you open up that burner account and you check in stories. Okay, good. I see us identifying ourselves. Thank you. This person is often high energy. Okay. Have you ever been described as intense? Okay. I can relate. That was my middle name. I was very, very intense. Pretty much everywhere. Okay. High energy, addictive. Oh, you might even have an actual addiction, obsessive. These person are prone to, we call this premature attachment. You get hooked real quick. Okay. You ready? You 2 feet in real quick. High energy, addictive or obsessive, perfectionistic. Is that anybody? Hard time being with flaws and mistakes with yourself and or with others. We've got some anxious people who are especially compassionate and graceful with other people, give them so much space to mess up. But with yourself, you're especially hard on yourself. You don't give yourself that same space to basically be a person who makes mistakes. Come on, anybody else? Thank you for identifying yourself. Okay, good. This person says, I don't reach for the other, but I ruminate and I worry very much. I'm going to start screenshotting some comments that I think are helpful for other people to see. I'm going to use it in video and stuff. This person says, I don't reach for the other, but I ruminate and worry very much. Also described as intense, sometimes too intense. So this is a good point. Like every single thing might not apply to you. This person says, I consider myself an AP, but I don't reach to anyone in times of stress. You're going to hear more about yourself in just a moment. Okay. And thank you for saying I can use your comments. I really appreciate that. Catastrophic thinking. I didn't mention this. Catastrophic thinking. Okay. Catastrophic thinking meaning that if there is a problem, it must mean the end. It must mean it must mean you're leaving me. Catastrophic thinking. High energy, intense, can be addictive or obsessive, perfectionistic. If more of those things apply to you than not, can you write AP? Libby, hi. Good to see your name pop up. If more of those qualities you resonate with than not, I want you to put AP in the comments. Let's talk about the dismissive-avoidant type. The dismissive-avoidant type, the anxious-preoccupied type's arch nemesis. The DA withdraws from others compulsively when stressed or scared. By the way, AP, we're talking about fight or flight. Y'all know what the fight or flight is. What fight or flight is? You've heard of that before. The fight or flight, that's your nervous system, your central nervous system. It's how you react when you are experiencing a threat. Thank you. We're at a place where relational threats are having the same impact on your nervous system as physical threats would. Okay? So when you think someone about to leave you, and you have not managed, you don't know how to manage that trigger, your fight flight system, your nervous system is reacting. So my anxious preoccupied types react in fight. You're going towards the threat. You like, I gotta get a hold of you. You ain't going nowhere. Okay? My anxious preoccupied type, I'm coming. My dismissive avoidant type, you're leaving. You fleeing. Fight, flight, okay? So the dismissive avoidant type withdraws from others compulsively when stressed or scared. When you're experiencing a threat, you out of there. Minimize problems in the relationship. You can become overwhelmed, okay, in the relationship and start to detach. And a part of detachment is minimizing, making things seem less important, less significant, less impactful than they actually are. The DA has difficulty creating emotional attachments. Not as much difficulty with lower risk interactions or relationships. A dismissive avoidant type, just because you withdraw as a way to try to protect yourself doesn't mean you don't have connections, doesn't mean you don't have friends. You can have plenty of friends, plenty of connections. As a matter of fact, there are people who would rather deal with you because you're a lot less intense than the AP. We got people who would rather be around you because you're not really asking those super deep questions. Or if you do, you're not getting yourself involved and you just letting people talk, but you're not really being transparent about yourself. So you can have a lot of friends or connections, but they might be often are superficial connections that lack depth and transparency. Like whether or not a dismissive avoidant has or doesn't have a lot of connections or friends or whatever is more of a matter of like your level of extroversion or introversion. That's a personality trait, not an attachment style. That's a nuance. If you identify with a DA, go ahead and put that in the chat. I see that someone already has done it. Thank you. And because DAs are less likely to seek out this kind of content, I'll ask you this. Do you know someone, or how are you currently or have been in the last year in relationship with the dismissive avoidant type? Drop that in the comments. It's like a moth to a flame. It's like a moth to a flame. They always find each other. See what he was engaged to a DA. He says he does not recommend. Let's talk about the fearful avoidant. The fearful avoidant, the FA, is a mix of the anxious preoccupied type and the dismissive avoidant type. I withdraw when the relationship becomes too intense. Then I reach out when I feel afraid that you're leaving. And then when you offer me the attention and the affection that I just said I wanted, I pull away again. Mixed messages, hot, cold, push, pull with a fearful avoidant. I call them orbiters. You don't quite leave and you don't quite stay. Okay, you orbit around the relationship. Now, this is a whole separate conversation, Titus, that I don't want to get too deep in, but I will acknowledge it. I'll actually screenshot it. But we get this a lot. That sounds narcissistic. Attachment styles and narcissism are just like not the same thing. I think avoidant types often get labeled as narcissistic when really they're dismissive avoidant. Now, can someone have narcissistic tendencies or be a full-blown narcissist and be avoidant? Yes. Okay, but a narcissistic personality disorder is like a fundamental problem with like who you literally are. Your attachment style is not who you are. It's how you manage stress. It's how you manage relationship issues. It's how you've internalized relationship trauma, and now it's how you behave in the world. It's not an issue. Like a personality disorder is like who you are. Your personality is in the core of who you are. Your attachment is the way that you behave to protect yourself. They're not the same thing. Okay, they're close, but not quite. I think it's important for me to make the distinction. I think avoidant types can get thrown away because you think that it's just there's some like monstrous villain. I'm not saying that's what you said, but I've been doing this for a little bit. I know how I know how these people are perceived, and it's that they're not. It's not that. It's like I need to, and we'll talk about this. I don't want to get too deep into that. Maybe I need a separate episode, like a short episode on the distinctions, the nuance between avoidance and narcissism. Would that be helpful for anyone? I don't know. Just for my nerds out there, maybe that would be helpful. But we're talking about attachment. We're not talking about narcissism right now. If you see some overlaps, okay, but that's not what we're talking about today. So, okay, y'all, that's the fearful avoidant, a mix of the AP and the DA within the same person, withdraws when the relationship becomes too intense. Then I'll reach out when I think that you are going to go away. And then when you give me the attention and the affection that I just said that I wanted, I pull away again. I really don't trust it. I'm fearful avoidant. I'm an orbiter. I don't quite leave and I don't quite stay. Does anybody identify with the fearful avoidant? Or if you've dated one, put dated one, engaged to one, married to one in the chat. Okay, the secure type, y'all. And right after this, we're going to talk about triggers and how each style manages those triggers or tries to solve relationship problems. We'll go into the origin of your attachment, the goal, shifting to secure attachment, and how to change. By the way, y'all, if you have any topic requests or questions, there's a link in my bio for Q&A and topic requests. So like how someone just said, yes, I want to know about the distinction between avoidance and narcissism. Please, if you put it in the box, I'll be more likely to keep track of it and actually like do it. Okay, so there's that. If you want to work together one-on-one, that link is also in my bio. Obviously, I haven't been on Instagram a lot, so I haven't been looking at DMs. I still haven't opened them. I just hopped right on the live. So please be patient as I'm going through the one-on-one forms and reaching back out to you, but that is there. Okay, someone says that you have dated a fearful avoidant. She self-sabotaged. Rodney is friends with one. All right, y'all, let's talk about the secure type. The secure type balances intimacy and space. Balances intimacy and space. Not hyper-independent. Hyper-independent, you excessively distance yourself from others in order to achieve at least a semblance of safety or comfort. I'm also not codependent, excessively dependent on another for comfort or a semblance of safety, but I'm interdependent. I balance intimacy and space. I'm an individual in a relationship. Your individuality is not threatened by relationship, and your individuality is not defined by the relationship. Okay, so what did you just hear about the AP and the DA? With a DA, a relationship, a DA perceives a relationship as threatening to my individuality. I'm not going to be able to do the same things that I want to do. I feel smothered. I feel like I don't have space to be myself. I feel like I have to get away from you in order to be me. The anxious-preoccupied type, my individuality is defined by the relationship. I am only me when I'm with you. I need you in order to really be satisfied with myself. But a secure type, my individuality is not threatened by the relationship. It's not defined by the relationship. I'm an individual within the relationship. That was good. I feel like somebody should rewind that. I don't know. A secure type, we're talking about developing trust, vulnerability, intimacy, and safety in a collaborative way. I'm going to say that again. We develop intimacy, trust, vulnerability, and safety in a collaborative way at a reasonable pace. Trust, vulnerability, intimacy, and safety is not assumed. Like an anxious-preoccupied type will assume trust, intimacy, vulnerability, and safety. I assume that. Because you're here, I just think that we're just supposed to just be able to just do this because we are in some way connected. A dismissive-avoidant type dismisses trust, intimacy, vulnerability, and safety. I in no way do I rely on you in order to feel those things. I rely on myself. When I develop intimacy, trust, safety, and vulnerability in a collaborative way, it means that I don't just give you trust and I don't just expect you to trust me. I don't expect a level of vulnerability or intimacy just because we're here together. But it's based on who you are and who I am and how we interact with each other. If I share something that is intimate about me with you, can I trust you to hold it in a way that protects me? And when you do, our trust develops. Can I be vulnerable with you? And can you create and hold emotional safe space for me? We're developing vulnerability. And if you give me signs that you can't, I adjust accordingly as it relates to you. But I don't shut down as an individual because of you. But as it relates to our relationship, I relate to you as who you are to me, and I allow you to relate to me as I am to you. So we develop trust, intimacy, vulnerability, and safety in a collaborative way. I don't assume you can hold things about me that you haven't shown evidence that you can do. I'm also trust myself enough to be able to give you a shot, to be able to open myself to you and allow you to authentically respond to me, and then make a healthy decision based on your response as to whether or not this is a safe place to be. Does that make sense? So when I say in a collaborative way, that's a process of relating. It's not just like a do it. It's like this is a process of relationship. We don't make assumptions about the relationship because of what's going on in me. I don't assume that I can't trust you because of what's going on in me. I don't assume that I can't share with you based on what's going on in me, which is more of an avoidance stance, right? I assume that I can't do this because of I have trust issues. So I can't give this to you, not because of who you are, but because of what's going on in me. So when I'm secure, we develop our trust, intimacy, vulnerability, and safety in a collaborative way, not in a self-centered way, or based on what I want or what kind of issues I've got. Then I define the relationship through my own problem. That's an insecure way of managing trust, vulnerability, safety, and intimacy. As a matter of fact, you're really not managing it at all. Okay? That good? All right. Thank you. That is an excellent description. Great. I feel like it's going to take some time for me to internalize this concept on a deeper level of understanding. I agree. I go really, like, it's just really some deep stuff. So what I recommend, you know how like teachers would tell you in school, like, do it again, like read it again, and you won't do it again. Now it's time for us to really be for real about it. Like, be serious. Like, this is your life. Like, do it again, read it again, listen to it again. I encourage you to listen to it again. This is super deep stuff. We're talking about, this is attachment at the core of who you are. We'll talk about the origins in just a moment. It's super deep. This is super subconscious, unconscious stuff that we're making conscious and making explicit right now. And so I wouldn't expect you to hear it one time and just get over all of the subconscious gates and walls that you have in order to be able to identify every single part of you that relates to every single thing that I'm saying. I think you should do it again. Okay? All right. Let's talk about triggers. This is when your sense of safety is threatened. We're talking about what you do to try to solve that problem. When your sense of safety is threatened, what do I do to manage that problem? When I am threatened, how do I extinguish the threat? When I am threatened, how do I eliminate the threat? We talked about how relational issues are received in our body as threatening. And no one likes to just sit threatened. So everybody, when we're feeling threatened, we try to eliminate the threat. When we are insecurely attached, we do it in dysfunctional ways. When we experience a threat, and everybody in every relationship experiences some type of threat in some degree. For some people, it's more severe, and some people, it's a little lighter. Okay, everyone in every relationship experiences some kind of threat in some way, not necessarily because it's a real objective threat, like somebody cheating on you or being interested in their work wife more than you. That's an objective threat to the relationship. But we can also perceive a threat in the relationship. You didn't text me back when I thought I would hear from you. You didn't call me back. You said you were going to call me back at 7. I didn't hear from you until 12. That person took a nap and they slept longer than they thought. It's a perceived threat to the relationship. Everybody experiences some kind of threat in some kind of way to some degree. So when we're about to talk about triggers and how we try to eliminate those triggers. And when we're talking about insecure attachment style, we're talking about dysfunctional ways that we try to eliminate the threat. Everybody experiences them and everybody's trying to get rid of them. It's just how you go about doing it that makes all the difference. If somebody got that, just say got it. If somebody says got that, say got it. If that sounded confusing to you, let me know. Everybody's got triggers. Secure people got triggers. It's how I manage the trigger that makes all the difference. That's a big misconception that I have when people want to start working with their attachment style. They're like, I just don't want to be triggered at all. I'm like, yeah, and everybody else on the planet. You know what I mean? Like, if we could eliminate triggers, I would be Jeff Bezos and more. Okay? Like, come on. That's not realistic. Everybody got triggers, even Jeff. You see they got divorced, right? Somebody was not feeling unsafe. Somebody was not ready. Somebody was not able to manage that in a way where we were able to get back to a place of safety between us. Even Jeff. Yes. Even Elon. He got how many? I don't want to get into all of this, y'all. Everybody got problems. Okay. It's a matter of how you manage that problem that makes all the difference. Thank y'all for letting me know that you got it. Hey, Terrence, we're talking about triggers. When your sense of safety is threatened, what do you do to solve that problem? When we're insecurely attached, we do it in dysfunctional ways. It breaks relationships. When we are securely attached, we do it in healthy ways, in grounded ways that not only save relationships, but make relationships better. I actually trust you more. Come on. I know that some people can't fathom it, and it's okay because you're going to get there. That when I'm triggered and when we know how to handle it in a healthy way, in a grounded way, we come out of the trigger trusting each other more. I actually trust that when I feel ungrounded, when I feel threatened, when my sense of safety is threatened, I trust that you're going to, that you don't attack me and you don't run from me. You actually are with me. I trust you more, not less. So when we're insecurely attached, our triggers break relationships. We handle it in ways that break relationships. When we're securely attached, we handle it in ways that construct. Y'all, I'm wearing something different because it's a different day. The recording yesterday stopped recording. Something might come up out of this recording that didn't come up yesterday about these topics. It gives me another chance to go through the content. We'll talk about the triggers for each attachment style and how each style tries to solve the problem. The origin of your attachment, how your attachment is formed back from childhood, the goal to shift to secure attachment, and how to change. Let's move into triggers. First, I need to say this, okay? When we're talking about triggers, we're talking about how you handle threat, okay? At this point, our relational threats trigger your nervous system just like a physical threat might trigger your nervous system, okay? Like a physical threat being like a dog chasing you down the street, a physical threat being you're in a dangerous neighborhood and you're afraid of violence. These are like physical threats. Okay. And so you understand that when there's a physical threat coming at you, that your body reacts. Okay. You might have heard of fight, flight at this point, right? Fight, flight, and even freeze. That's defining the way that your nervous system reacts when a threat is presented. Right? Y'all with me so far, right? Fight, flight, freeze. That's defining your nervous system. You either fight or you flee, flight, or you freeze. So we understand that when we're talking about physical threats, but your nervous system reacts in the same way when we have a relational threat. Relational threats, the big umbrella words for relational threats, like there are a lot of things underneath of these words. Rejection and abandonment. Can somebody just drop that in the chat if you're following me so far? Rejection and abandonment are two big umbrellas. When we're talking about attachment, like attachment wounds, attachment threats, relationship threats, things that cause relationship trauma, rejection and abandonment are our two big threats. And somebody just drop that in the comments, rejection and abandonment. And there are many different ways that signal to us that we are being rejected or abandoned. Thanks, Maddie. Thank you. Water and green tea. Thank you. Rejection and abandonment. Many different ways that can be signal to us that we're being rejected or abandoned. And we're going to get into how each style handles that trigger. Because everyone is triggered. Hear me. Everyone is triggered by rejection and abandonment. the threat that someone that you have an attachment to is going to leave you. That doesn't sit well with anybody. The difference is how you manage the trigger when it happens. Make sense? So it's not strange. It's the most normal thing, okay? It's the most normal thing to be triggered by rejection and abandonment. You hear me? It's the most natural thing to be concerned when someone you have an attachment to is signaling to you that they are going to detach from you. It's the most normal thing to be triggered by that. So if you got that, just can you just let me know? You know, I like interaction. I need a little bit of response. Okay. It's the most normal thing. Now, what is dysfunctional? And let me actually back up. I kind of like that I get to go through this content again today because I get to say or go through some things that I didn't say yesterday. The functional part of that, I want you to understand this. There is a functionality to having a reaction, a response to that. When someone that you have an attachment to is moving away from you, there's a function to that. And it's about achieving safety. When I notice that someone that I have an attachment to, someone that I'm relying on, depending on, is moving away from me, I react because there's something about this person that gives me a sense of safety. So there's a function to it. There's a benefit to having a reaction, to noticing when someone that is close to me is moving away from me, because I'm trying to gain stability. The dysfunction is how I try to get that stability. The dysfunction is perceiving threats that really aren't threats. I'm having a subjective experience. It's because of what's going on in me and how I'm seeing this interaction that is making me react this way. It's not actually what you're intending to do. It's not actually what's happening. Let me give you an example to make it make sense. Someone is taking a nap. This happens to people every single day. Someone's taking a nap and they said, I'm going to hit you up after I take a nap. And they took longer, they napped for longer than you thought and that they thought. If I have, let's say, an anxious attachment, if I have an anxious attachment and I don't hear from you when I expected to hear from you, it makes sense. First part, it makes sense that I would feel something about that. Something is signaling that something's wrong. That's the functional part of it. There's something's going on. I need more information. The dysfunctional part of reacting to that trigger is that I do have some past experiences. If you're anxiously attached, you have some past experiences that are telling you that maybe this is the end. They're never coming back. They've blocked you. They've left you. They're sleeping with somebody else. The dysfunctional part is projecting my own experience onto the present. And I'm jumping to a conclusion without communicating, without actually being curious about what's really going on. Does that make sense, y'all? So there's a functional part of saying there's something going on. I need more information. The dysfunctional part is like the degree of your reaction, the projection in your reaction, and compulsive reactions. Like there's no thought time between the incident that happens, the communication lapse, and the way that you reacted to it. I hope I'm not getting too far ahead of myself. If that makes sense to you, do y'all follow that? So let me get back to my notes because I kind of went down a little bit of a thing there. So when we're talking about triggers, first thing to understand is that everybody's got them. Second thing to understand is it's not about whether you have them or not. It's about how you manage them. Third thing to understand, and then we'll move into the attachment styles and how each one manages each one of these triggers. Third thing to understand is that when we are triggered, especially when we're talking about attachment and your relationships, when you're triggered, your sense of safety is being threatened. And I'm trying to eliminate that threat. Let's talk about the anxious-preoccupied style. The anxious-preoccupied style, in general, y'all, is triggered by space. The anxious-preoccupied style is triggered by space. That space can be physical. That space can be mental or emotional, like you're here, but I don't feel connected to you. Y'all catch that? It's not just that I want you here, even though that helps, right? From an anxious preoccupied type, you do think it helps, right? Like I want you in the house. I want to know where you at. It helps. It feels like it helps me. It helps to soothe me to know where I can expect you. So it's not that it's not necessarily one thing over everything else. It's a combination of things. And the overarching issue is space. You can be physically here, but mentally, emotionally, I feel disconnected from you. And I can be just as triggered as if you ghost for 3 days and I don't see you at all. So it's about space. Now, the way that space manifests can be different, or what that space looks like, however you want to word that. The anxious preoccupied type is triggered by space. When we are insecurely attached, we manage triggers by pressing the emergency stop button. When was the last time you've been on a treadmill? Now, I didn't do this yesterday, but today I'm going to ask. I just want to know who I'm talking to. Okay. Now we're going into the fitness stuff. You know, I'm a personal trainer and a health coach and such. So I'm into fitness. I like fitness metaphors and things. When was the last time you've been on a treadmill? Okay. Just check in. Last week? Was it yesterday? Today? This morning? Has it been over a year? I mean, whatever it's been. Have you ever been on one? When was the last time you've been on a treadmill? So I see crying faces in the reactions. It's been a while, huh? We're not gonna do this today, but has it been a minute? Just put it's been a minute if that's you. It's been a little while. College, some of y'all is like y'all quiet. What's wrong? What's wrong? You know, the treadmill, that thing with the belt is moving and you get to control the speed. It's been a while. Okay, that's all I wanted to know. That's all. I just want to know. It's just been a while. Okay. But you might remember, okay. You might remember that there's an emergency. Your buyer said it's been a little while. Okay. All right. It's okay. We're not going to get into all those details today. But you might remember, think hard now. Think hard. Okay. There's an emergency stop button. You know, there's a start button, there's a stop button, and there's an emergency stop button. Okay. The emergency stop doesn't ask you any questions. It's just when you hit that latch, it's not asking you, are you sure? That thing is coming to a complete stop. It's assuming that you are in distress, right? That's why, because otherwise you would be walking it down, right? Let's say you were at 8 miles per hour. Some of y'all like, what? Yeah, 8 miles per hour. And then you might drop it down to like a 4, a 3, a 2. You walk it down, or you press the little cool down button and it brings you down on purpose. But an emergency stop is for distress. Something's wrong. Something's happened. I need this treadmill. I need it to stop right now. Y'all, when we are insecurely attached, we don't de-escalate in a controlled way. We try to press the emergency stop button to eliminate the distress completely and immediately. Y'all following me so far? If I'm running at 7 miles per hour and I click the emergency stop button, I shouldn't have been running at 7 miles per hour. I have misjudged myself. I was doing too much. If I'm in such distress that I have to click the emergency stop button to bring this thing down, I should be able to, if I chose to be up there, I should be able to walk that thing down under control. Okay. Or maybe I can be at that 7 miles per hour, but I become panicked. Come on. This is somebody. I become panicked. And I was doing okay until I started to think about the stress, and I started to sweat, and I started to feel myself breathing a little bit different. And I think I need to stop this right now. And I'm in a panic. I have the capacity, but mentally and emotionally, I'm in distress. Physically, I could do it, but mentally and emotionally, I'm in distress. I needed the emergency stop button. Stop this completely and immediately. So y'all, when we are insecurely attached, y'all are following good. When we are insecurely attached, we're hitting that emergency stop button to eliminate the threat. So if I'm an anxious preoccupied person and I'm triggered by space, my emergency stop button is what? Guess. What? Guess again. Maddie, claw even harder. Call, text, long paragraphs. There it is. So I am going to reach. When we're talking about, remember we just talked about fight, flight, freeze just a couple minutes ago, right? The anxious preoccupied type, their main go-to is to fight. I'm going towards the threat. right? Pop up, thank you, B. I'm going towards the threat. I'm triggered by space. My emergency stop is contact. I just need contact. How many of y'all have been anxious, preoccupied before, or you are right now? And and it took them days, maybe hours and hours or whatever, to respond to your text, to respond to your call. Thank you, B, for buying a badge. I really appreciate it. It took them forever to respond. But when they did, it felt like what? Felt like relief. They still the same, emotionally immature or unavailable person, but I just needed that response. And suddenly I feel relief. Suddenly I can focus on work. Suddenly I can eat again. Suddenly I can sleep. Okay? So my emergency stop is contact. The anxious preoccupied type will bulldoze in. They'll send texts, phone calls, pull up. Now everybody got a little different brand of how they like to do it. Okay? So somebody said pop up. Y'all be popping up uninvited. Matter of fact, they said don't come. Okay? And here you go. You calling people's jobs, moms, best friends. You doing all kinds of stuff. LinkedIn. Okay, you've been blocked on the Instagram and the TikToks and all kinds of stuff. And now you search in LinkedIn. Your burner accounts. Come on, y'all. And I don't know. Like, people usually know when it's you creeping around on that burner. I think they have a pretty good guess that it's you. Anyway, that's the anxious preoccupied type. I want contact. I just need to know. Yeah, LinkedIn. You'd be surprised. Okay? You'd be surprised what some people will do. Mike, thank you for buying a badge. I appreciate it. Okay, y'all, let's talk about the dismissive-avoidant type. The dismissive-avoidant type, if the anxious-preoccupied type is triggered by space, the dismissive-avoidant type is triggered by intimacy, by closeness, by you closing in. So this is that anxious-avoidant loop. That'll do a whole separate episode on just this interaction alone. But this is that anxious-avoidant loop. The anxious-preoccupied person is triggered by the dismissive-avoidant avoiding, and the avoidant is triggered by the anxious-preoccupied type coming to get them. So they end up is a cat and mouse game of the worst type, triggering your deepest, most core rejection and abandonment wounds for both people. And I know it's hard for the anxious preoccupied type to understand this. And again, it's a whole separate episode, but for both people, it's triggering deep core wounds, and both are trying to eliminate the threat. The avoidant is trying to eliminate it by getting away from you. The anxious type is trying to eliminate it by coming towards you. Okay? Yes, it's a constant cycle until there's attention and intervention. That's a whole separate episode to talk about just that interaction alone. So the dismissive avoidant type is triggered by closeness. Their emergency stop is space. They're parachuting out that thing. Okay, they're jumping ship. What does that look like practically, y'all? Anybody in the comments? What does that look like practically speaking on a day-to-day? What does that look like? Parachuting out. What does jumping ship look like from a dismissive avoidant type? Anybody have a guess? Yeah, Byron. Yep, that's on my list. Blocking you. Ghosting, yes. Silence. I'm there. So the anxious preoccupied type is blowing phones up. Okay. Not so they're and the dismissive avoidant type is not responding. Or the dreaded, what's the dreaded response, y'all? Does anybody know? What's the worst? It's the most painful kind of response from an avoidant. What is it? Anybody got a guess? They sent 5 to 10 long texts detailing their issues with the relationship, with them. B, there it is. Okay. It's not funny because it's just stressful, isn't it? It's stressful, isn't it? Okay. They don't even say, Maddie, this is beyond the I need some space. Let's take a break. Let's come back to that. That's even better, right? I think an anxious preoccupied type would agree that if I got a response that's like, hey, can I take a couple of days? That's even better than okay. And don't let them put a what after the okay. Don't let them put a what after the okay. What's right after that okay? It just sends you. It just sends you. Who knows? It looks like this. I'll type it in the comments. Okay, with a period. Oh, God. Some other examples. Think whatever you want. Uh-oh. I can't. Hey, you ever think whatever you want. Oh, my gosh. Okay. All right. I'm sorry, y'all. I got to keep going. So the dismissive avoidant type is triggered by closeness. As the AP is closing in, the DA is running away. Their emergency stop trigger is space. I want to stop this trigger completely and immediately. They parachute out. They ignore attempts to contact. They block. They break up. Okay. Usually they don't communicate about the breakup. They just, like somebody said, they just ghost away. A fearful avoidant type. A fearful avoidant type experiences AP and DA in the same relationship. Like they are one person, they experience anxious preoccupied tendencies and dismissive avoidant tendencies in the same relationship. I call these people orbiters. They don't quite leave and they don't quite stay. When they so let's say the fearful avoidant, one of the individuals in the relationship has withdrawn a bit. The relationship started to get too intense. There was too much conflict. They started to disengage. When the other person's kind of like, all right, if that's what you want, and they start to space away from the person who was already withdrawn, the fearful avoidant then reaches for the other person. Okay. The other person's like, okay, well, if you're open to talking, if you still want this, hey, I actually still want it too. I never wanted to break up. I never wanted to take a break. And they start to turn back towards the fearful avoidant person who was withdrawn at first. Stage 2, they come back because they realize they might lose the other person. The other person starts to turn to. And then when they start to get the attention and the affection that they were just reaching for, they're suspicious of it or they become overwhelmed quickly and they withdraw again. That's the fearful avoidant type. Ruben, hey, that's the fearful avoidant type. So the fearful avoidant is both triggered by intimacy, closeness. When you come back to me, I'm triggered. When you go away from me, I'm triggered as well. I orbit in the relationship. I don't quite leave and I don't quite stay. And then we've got the secure type. Y'all, understand this. This is a common misconception about attachment, that secure types don't have any triggers. And that's not true. Everyone's got triggers. Again, at the beginning of this episode, we talked about how everyone might perceive some degree of rejection and abandonment in a relationship. It's not always a full-blown threat of a breakup. Okay, it can be we're spending less time together, and that it can trigger rejection, a feeling of rejection. Can be that when we're in a relationship and when I really needed you, I've heard this, I don't know how many times now, someone ends up in the hospital for something and the partner doesn't show up because they're like, I have to work, or they're tied up with other things, and it's almost as if that their person in the hospital is an inconvenience. And let's say there really was something, because I'm talking about secure right now, okay? I'm not talking about someone who's avoidant. Let's talk about secure. These kinds of signals of rejection and or abandonment can happen in any relationship. It happens to the most secure people. You can get a sign that someone is leaving you or creating more distance between you and them than what makes you feel safe. Okay? Does everyone get that? Anybody, every relationship can get some degree of this at some point. It's a matter of how extreme that is, and how well we can manage that together, which is what makes the difference. No one is walking around in a whole intimate romantic relationship not getting triggered by anything. The foundational security of the relationship helps to mitigate that sense of rejection and abandonment. What do I mean by that? It means that how the foundation of our relationship, if it's secure, you can essentially what's the word? So it's like the impact of those kinds of rejection and abandonment signals, like it doesn't hit the same. Like if the foundation of our relationship is secure and you forget to call me back one night, that impact is a lot different than if the foundation of our relationship is insecure. We really don't trust each other consistently. We really don't feel safe with each other consistently. And I don't hear back from you one night when I'm supposed to. That impact is different. Does that make sense, y'all? I'm getting into nuance. I tend to do that. Okay, but Mike said, I was just about to ask if it's normal to feel these triggers without being one of these types. Yes, it's totally normal. It's totally normal. We're especially sensitive to our romantic partners not being like consistent or predictable, in ways that we're not as sensitive when it's a colleague or friend most of the time. Okay, let me get back to my notes. I'm getting a little bit too deep. The secure type, here's where we're at. The secure type can be triggered by whatever. They can be triggered by space. They can also be triggered by a feeling of smotheredness. Like, I feel like I don't have enough space. I feel like I don't have enough space from you. Okay? I feel like you're imposing, you're overstepping my boundaries. Or I feel like you're too far away from me. A secure type can be triggered by any of that, by anything in this range that we talked about with the AP and the DA, as small or as big, okay? Again, the difference is how it's managed. So the difference is the secure type doesn't use an emergency stop button. It is an uncommon strategy to manage a trigger. And I say uncommon because it's not impossible, right? Let's say someone reaches out, someone sends you a picture of your person sitting at a table. It looks like a romantic dinner. Okay, we're not sure yet, but it looks like a romantic dinner. They send you a picture. It comes to your phone. It comes to your DM. I'm pretty sure it's going to trigger a secure type. Like, well, what the hell is this? Right? I'm not suggesting that you don't have any reaction to something that's like, that's especially uncommon. Okay? That's especially strange. So there is typically not an emergency stop. It would be uncommon. So what do I do instead? If I don't experience stress or distress as an experience where I must stop it immediately and completely, what do I do instead? What do we say in that treadmill example a couple minutes ago? I walk it down. I communicate. It's a slow de-escalation with communication rather than with control. The AP and the DA try to control the trigger by taking the reins and saying, we're just not talking at all, DA, or we're going to talk right now, AP. Okay? Fearful-Avoidant type, either one. Secure type, it's not a complete immediate stop. We're slowly de-escalating with communication, not control. Okay? Y'all, emergency stops are not sustainable, in case you couldn't tell. Okay? Emergency stops are not sustainable. It might make you feel better in the moment when you do get that contact or when you do get that space, but this is not sustainable for a relationship. So what do we need to do? We need to be able to be with the trigger, because you will have them. We need to be able to be with the trigger and communicate through it rather than becoming overwhelmed and panicked. So I've got to be able to regulate my nervous system. I also need the communication skills to be able to bring that to my person. I also need a sense of safety in the relationship that allows me to do that, because we don't encourage people to open up to someone who is consistently unsafe, consistently maybe critical or avoidant themselves. So we have to develop a sense of safety in the relationship to even be able to bring this in a safe way and to allow you to cover it, allow you to speak to it, allow you to correct my misperception, allow you to reassure me that maybe my perception wasn't wrong, and maybe I really did make a mistake. Maybe I really did, like, whatever I did, like I was supposed to call you back last night at 7. It totally slipped my mind. It's not a lie or sneaky or whatever. I just forgot to do it, or I really did get caught up at work, or I really did choose to do something else. I made a mistake. I misprioritized. I did not realize that it would have this impact. I take responsibility for the impact, and so that's a safe relationship. We're going to talk later. I think we'll talk about an attachment in dating. We'll talk about unrealistic expectations that, like, no one will ever trigger you. Okay. Or that it's not realistic to have a conversation like that when you are triggered, because we have to be able to do that. So anyway, we're about to move on into origin of your attachment. I'll just do this little plug for my one-on-ones. If you want to work together one-on-one on this stuff, there's a link in my bio. You fill out a form and I reach out to you in a couple of days. I did a lot of therapy with my own attachment. I used to be very much anxiously attached. I was definitely a nut. I'm pulling up. Yep. I'm sending books in the text. Detailed narratives. Okay. damn near had table of contents, index, glossaries, page numbers, links, okay, graphs. I mean, pretty much. So, I mean, I had to do a lot of things with my attachment. So I recommend that you do it with a therapist. If you want to do it with me, fill out the form in my bio. Okay, y'all, let's talk about the origin of your attachment. Your attachment begins to develop in childhood. Okay, your attachment is constructed by age 5. After age 5, most people are in the same family system that they were in as it was being constructed. So at that point on, until you leave the family system, it's just being reinforced. So if you're developing patterns and habits, beliefs, belief systems about yourself and relationship that lean to insecure attachment, you are in the same family system for about 18, sometimes more years. That is still reinforcing those same negative, dysfunctional, insecure habits, mindsets, and emotional patterns. All right. Now, the good news is your attachment can change. We know this. If you don't believe it, you should read the reviews that are on my page. Your attachment can change, and it will change with attention and intervention. It doesn't change on its own. It doesn't change with willpower. It doesn't change with affirmations. Okay. This is a mental and emotional process that we go through because it's a mental and emotional problem that we have. Okay. It's not because you're not smart. It's not because you're not positive. It's a mental and emotional distortions that we have that allow us to continue to behave in insecure ways, excessively anxious or excessively avoidant, or this combo pack of both. So your attachment is developing up to age 5, and then it's constructed, and after that it's reinforced until attention and intervention. Everybody got that? If you got that, put got it in the chat. It can change. Your two founder people for attachment, Mary Ainsworth and John Bowlby. Thank you for the feedback. I really like that. Mary Ainsworth and John Bowlby, I just put it in the chat. Y'all, those are the founders, the pioneers of attachment work. That's that real research stuff. It's not just an attachment quiz, okay? If you're really into it, those are your that's the ground zero, okay? For your information. And if you want to know where this information is even coming from, okay? How does it develop, okay, in childhood? Through your interactions with your caregivers. Your caregivers are typically your biological parents, okay? But caregivers, attachment figures can also be a grandparent, can also be a step-parent, could also be a foster parent, some other guardian. It might have been an older brother or older sister for you. So your attachment figures are the people who, through those interactions, define, create, construct your attachment style, okay? Now, y'all, it is supposed to be your biological parents. Yeah, supposed to be. I don't do a whole lot of shoulds and musts and stuff like that. But when we're talking about attachment, y'all, and again, I got to do it. We got to do a lot of family stuff this season. Okay, we really got to do some family stuff and understanding the importance of a family. I don't even want to get started. I already feel it in my chest. It's just already just too much. Okay, we got to start talking about the importance of a family, not just for generational wealth. Everybody's supposed to talk about it. Let me just go down this side. Can I just go down this little sidebar really, really quick? Just real quick. I'll be right back, and we'll keep talking about the origin of your attachment. I just want to go down this sidebar really quick and just get this off my chest. I'm about tired. Hey, Star. I'm about tired. Thanks, Z. It's good to see your name pop up as well. I'm about tired, y'all. Everybody talking about generational wealth. Why? It's not because wealth isn't important. Everybody wants health, wealth, and love. Wealth, whatever that means to you. It just means that you don't want to be in scarcity. Whatever that means to you. Whatever number that means. Whatever resources that means. I don't care what it means. I don't care how you define it. But you want it, though. Okay? No one wants to feel strapped. Let's be for real. Health, wealth, love. That's everybody. You don't want to die prematurely, right? Unless you have a serious mental health disorder. Be honest. People don't want to be dying prematurely. You don't want to be walking around sick and upset, in pain and in distress. Health, wealth, and love. Okay? But I'm about tired about people talking about this generational wealth. We need to be talking about family, not just for money, for your emotional and mental health. How about that? How you about to run a family business? Everybody depressed, anxious, and don't know how to talk to each other. Boundaries all effed up. But you're talking about you want scholarship funds and all kinds of stuff, and you want businesses and you want dynasties, but your emotional health is in the tubes, in the dumps. We need family not for a bunch of money. You need family for emotional and mental stability. Be for real. Generational wealth in the money sense is okay, great. But if you can't sleep well at night because you get rejected by your father who wants you to work in the family business, but every time you talk to him, you feel like you're not good enough. What kind of wealth is that? Be for real, y'all. I'm so tired of this. You need family for your mental and emotional stability, not for a damn dynasty. You do that for one generation, next generation in therapy for the next 15 years because their parents weren't around emotionally. Come on. I'm trying not to cuss. I'm trying to watch my mouth, honestly. But I'm feeling, it makes me a little bit upset because the priorities are just, it's clearly out of order. And it's not really a wide, you think you're using the word generational, thinking aerial view, but generationally aerial view, if your mental health, y'all depression is running in your family. What good is a damn franchise? What good? What you gonna do with $1 million and your grandkids? You don't even know your grandkids because your kids won't talk to you. What good have you done? I'm sorry, I hear it in my voice. I'm a bit upset. I'm a bit upset, folks. All right, let's get back on track. Let's bring it back to attachment. There are two people in the whole world that are supposed to be the two people that stabilize your attachment and facilitate your secure attachment. You can have good substitutes. You will never have a true substitute. There is no true substitute for a biological parent. There is no true substitute for a biological parent. Now, look, I said what I said. You can have a good substitute. The research backs this up. If you want to read the books yourself, do it. I've already dropped the names. Read the books yourself, okay? Because this is not, this stuff is seen as like some kind of controversial take, but it's the facts. You got two biological parents that are supposed to be the ones that facilitate your secure attachment, that facilitate your emotional health as a child, and you're in child rearing. It's supposed to be these two. When one or both are dysfunctional or absent, you're gonna have a problem. Why? Because your attachment is the origin of your attachment is with those two. You can have good stand-ins, good substitutes, but then we've got one or two of those people, your biological parents, where there is some disconnection where there should have been a connection. It's no shade on your step-parent or your grandparents. But we got people that try to bypass the fact that their father or the mother wasn't there. And it's like, but at least I had this, but you didn't have that. And you have to address emotionally and mentally that gap. It doesn't mean that it doesn't discount the benefit that you got from the substitutes. And even that, I hope it sounds maybe a little bit, I don't mean to make it think it sounds demeaning. I don't want to devalue it, but it's the reality of it. I think it can sound like it gets a devalue, but I think I'm actually being real. That the value is in the biological, the most valuable thing is for the biological parents to be functional and safe for the children. Also acknowledging, for the sake of the conversation, that that it is not the best thing when you have a dysfunctional, unsafe parent that is present. Do we understand that? I am not saying that regardless of the quality of that parent or the functionality or safety of that parent, that it should have been them more than somebody else. What I am saying is that the most valuable thing, we got to just be able to say it, the most valuable combination is two functional and safe biological parents rearing their children. That is the most valuable thing. Why? Because the origin of your attachment, the way that it's supposed to be, I'm not talking about spiritually, I'm not talking about religiously, I'm not talking about societally, I'm talking about nature, the nature of you. You made you a combo of two individuals that made you, and those two people should rear you. It's really not that complicated. So the origin of your attachment, the most valuable attachment that you could have is having an attachment with those two that created you being functional and safe. That's all I'm saying. So you can have a good substitute, but there's not a true substitute for a functional, safe, biological parent. That's the most valuable one. Okay? I can't even get into all the things that I feel like that are just going through my head right now about all these wild setups that we got going on. I really believe, I'm going to say this and then I got to keep going. I think that being a parent is the most important thing on the planet. I think it's the most important job on the planet. It's the most valuable thing. It's to be a healthy, functional parent. And I'm going to say this, I got to keep going, Lord knows. You should be striving. Yeah, should. I don't do shoulds with anything else. Have you ever heard me say a should? I don't even do shoulds. But this is the one place where it should be a particular way. It's one place it should be a particular way. Functional, safe parents raising children. Parents. How it take two to make, if it only took one to do it right, we could do it all on our own. You just be able to just pop it out at will, and you'd have the capacity to do it right on your own. But that's not how it worked, was it? It took two, didn't it? I don't understand how we can't this did not come up in yesterday's episode. I was just on my notes. But I just don't understand why you can't agree on that. If you can't agree on that, we really not of the same something that we really can't connect. We really aren't going to see things in the same, we really don't have the same worldview. We really don't have the same mental state. Okay? It took two to make, if it took two to do it, it takes two to have the capacity to do it in a way that's going to be functional. Now, can one do it? Yeah, but then when we get to how well did it get done? What's the quality of the work? That's a different. All right. Okay. All right. I am so far off here with these notes. So your attachment figures are the interactions you have with them are where you develop your attachment style. We are so in a different zone right now. So what is it about the interactions, regardless of who it is? Biological parent, substitute, stand-in. Regardless of who it is, okay? What is it about the interactions that affects the quality of your attachment, whether you end up more insecure or secure? Here are some things, some big ones. The time when you reach for them, when you have a need and you reach, and children are always doing, when a child has a need, they signal to the parent or to the attachment figure that they have a need that needs to be met. And it's up to the parent to respond. It's up to the attachment figure to respond. The quality of their response affects the attachment style that's being constructed. Is it a timely response? Is it a sufficient response? Mary, thanks for buying a badge. I appreciate it. Is it a sufficient response? Is it a response that's based on who I am? Like, for example, you and your brother, you and your sister could have a similar need, right? Both need emotional care and both could need it differently. Do you respond to me based on what I need? Is it a personalized response? Is it a sufficient response? Is it a timely response? Do you scale your response based on the impact that I've had? For example, so y'all heard, don't cry over spilled milk. An attachment figure saying, hey, don't cry, it's not that big of a deal, could say an appropriate, sufficient response, because the impact of the spilled milk is pretty low. Very low. Let's be real. Now, if you had baseball games every Saturday and your father showed up 2 out of 11 times and you heard, don't cry, it's not that big of a deal, the response doesn't scale to the impact that incident had. You were on honor roll and they had an honor roll breakfast at school. And your mom shows up, she's tired. She's not as engaged as you would like her to be. Someone saying, at least your mom was there. You kind of like, I guess. Your mom shows up high, drunk or high, to the honor roll breakfast, and someone says, at least your mom was there. It doesn't scale to the impact that had. I got a mom who was tired and couldn't engage the way that I would like, or I got a mom who was drunk or high showing up at school. The response doesn't scale. So it's not about having like some deep, big, it's not about having some very serious emotional response every single time something happens, but it's about having an appropriate, sufficient response. And some of the things to consider are like the depth of the response based on the scale of the impact, scale of the issue. Does it cover the impact? Is it timely? And are you talking to me? Right? Boys don't cry for a boy who might be more sensitive than his sisters. It's not an appropriate response. It's not an appropriate response, period. But I'm trying to be realistic, okay? If you have a boy who hardly cries, right? Because you got a boy who hardly cries, he's super tough, and you're like, hey, like, you don't usually cry. That's just who he is. But if you have a boy who regularly cries because that is who he is, saying boys don't cry because I'm trying to make you different, you are not okay, that's a very different, that impact of that response is very different. Again, I'm not condoning the whole boys don't cry thing, but I'm trying to be realistic. I'm trying to give you real things to consider, nuance to consider. Okay? I'm a fit person. I have been. I love fitness. I'm literally a certified fitness professional, okay? If my mother said to me, Taylor, it looks like you gained a little weight. Like, are you okay? The impact that it has on me is very different than someone who has struggled with weight their whole life. Does that make sense? So based on who I am, that's actually, I've said to her, yeah, I think you need to tell me if you see something, say something. You know what I mean? So based on who I am, her saying that to me isn't going to have the same emotional impact as someone who really struggles with their weight, who struggles to stay consistent or feel safe in a gym. A mom saying, you look like you gained some weight, has a different emotional impact on that person. So what I'm talking about is nuance. I'm talking about individualizing our responses to someone to cover the wound, right? Someone saying that to me is not going to wound me. Someone saying that to someone who has, who had a husband who would only take her out if she looked a certain way, it's going to have a very different impact. I'm getting into nuance. I'm getting a little too deep, but y'all, are you following that? So what is it about the interactions? It's about the quality of the interactions. It's about timeliness. It's about personalization, individualization. Okay. It's about scaling the response. So as a child, these things that are happening between you and your attachment figure are affecting your perception of, can I count on you? When I have a need, can you cover it? When I'm in pain, can you cover it? That is the question that is constantly being asked in childhood. When I need something, can you cover it? Will you cover it? Other things that affect the quality of your interactions, your parents' physical and emotional availability to you. Someone can be physically there, but emotionally absent. Someone could be physically gone, but emotionally they're somehow they're in tune with you. They call, but you can't count on them to physically be there. These two things work together. Okay, so their physical and emotional availability for you. Is someone predictable, reliable, stable? Can I count on you to do what you say that you're going to do? Are you where I expect you to be? Is what you do healthy and safe for me? Predictability, reliability, stability. All those things, y'all, are things that affect the quality of your interactions, which then directly affect whether you're leaning insecure or secure attachment, and to what degree of insecurity are you experiencing, okay? Since no parent is always like exactly the same, right? Or in responding in exactly the right way. It's not about a parent showing up perfectly, right? We got to say that for the record. But it's about the degree of the imperfections matter. The degree of the imperfections matter, okay? The quality of the covering when I did mess up, was there a response? Was there any sort of account of that? Or did we just was I just supposed to act like it never happened? I'm not supposed to say something. I'm not supposed to expect anything. I'm supposed to just be grateful that I'm here, that this person's here at all, or that I'm alive. Okay? So the degree of the imperfections, the degree of the miss matters. And when there's a miss, is there an account? So there's a lot of nuance in all of this stuff, but I hope that makes sense. All of these things affect the quality of your attachment. So y'all, the goal, whether you're anxious, preoccupied, dismissive, avoidant, or fearful avoidant, the goal is to shift to secure attachment. We want to resolve issues with trust, vulnerability, safety, and intimacy. Why do we have issues with trust, vulnerability, safety, and intimacy, which I consider the 4 pillars of secure attachment? Why do I have issues with that? Because I had past issues where those things were affected in a negative way. Experiences of rejection and abandonment affect my ability to trust that you're really going to be there when I need you, that you're really going to respond in a safe way. What we want to do is be able to get these past experiences out of the way of the present so that it's not negatively affecting our ability to be in intimate relationship right now. We want to correct and develop new personal, mental, and emotional systems so that you can have healthier external behaviors. What do I mean by internal systems? When I say that, I'm talking about the way that you think, the way that you perceive, your emotional patterns, the way you manage your nervous system, the way you can become more grounded after you've been triggered. The assumptions that you make about people, challenging those. So we gotta correct and develop new internal systems to be able to perceive the world, perceive relationships differently. Does that make sense, y'all? And then it's the how do I do it? We're going to get to that in a moment. The goal is to be able to rest in intimate relationship with other, okay? Since we can't change the past, this is what we need to do. So how to change? We got to go to therapy, y'all. Therapy. The podcast is not enough. Books are not enough. We're talking about a process, changing your emotional and mental processes, okay? We do it with some deep internal work. I suggest you go to therapy. If you want to work with me, there's a one-on-one form in my bio. This is literally all I do. I do secure attachment. What else are we doing? How are we changing? We're exploring past childhood experiences associated with rejection and abandonment, including death or emotional absence. Someone, again, can be physically there, but emotionally absent or unsafe. We want to explore these experiences. When I say explore, I'm not talking about just recalling the experiences. We're talking about reorienting to this experience. What does that mean? Because we can't change what happened, I have to change my position to it. Because I can't change the experience that I had, I change my position to it. What does that mean? Rather than what someone did, your dad not showing up to my soccer games. Which really, my dad, we would sometimes go to my soccer games, but he'd be reading the newspaper. He was way more into basketball when I played basketball. And I was hurt by that. Because he was showing disinterest. Okay? So when we're talking about reorienting to an experience, saying that happened, but that's not, I don't internalize that experience as if I am not interesting or I'm not good enough or I have to do a sport that you like so that I get positive feedback. I can't do a sport that I like. So that taking an experience that you've had that signaled rejection and abandonment where you internalize someone's behavior around you or towards you and made it about you. We want to externalize those experiences. We process the emotions that it did create and beliefs that did develop because of experiences like that, and be able to at the same time separate ourselves, who I actually am from the experience that I had. Does that make sense, y'all? That's the kind of stuff that we do in therapy. We come to terms with things in the past rather than reject it, ignore it. We come to terms with it. That's accepting it. Coming to terms with it on the other side of that, y'all, is also not blowing it up and making it your whole life. Your whole story is based on the fact that your mother apparently didn't want to care for you. Was it painful? Yes. Is it going to take a lot of time? Is it going to take some intentional time? Is a better way to say that. Is it going to take some intentional time to work through those things? Yes. And that's not you. So we accept it. We don't blow it up and make it your backdrop. We come to terms with these things. We see it, the way that I can put it sometimes with a client is I see it at scale. I don't see it as super small, like it's nothing, because it's something. And I don't see it as super big, like it's an impossible wall to scale when I can. We want to be able to create space for new experiences, okay? How else are we changing? We're creating safe environments in the present, developing relationships with emotionally safe others, and putting distance, boundaries between emotionally unsafe others. Now look, if you're new to this, it can be hard to tell if someone's really emotionally unsafe or if you're really just triggered to hell and you really don't know who's doing what, right? You I don't know. I know I got some childhood stuff. I know I got some trauma back here. I really can't tell if you not inviting me to the group dinner is a real slight at me and you're really signs of abandonment, or am I really not cool with that group anyway and it makes sense that you wouldn't invite me to the party? Okay, same incident. You didn't get the invite, but what is really going on? So it's hard. It can be very hard to tell. That can be hard to tell for anybody, but that's an example of how it could be hard to tell, hard to discern what to do, or whether to set boundaries, or whether to disconnect, or whether to have a conversation if my own trauma is at play. So what I'm suggesting then is this. In the pursuit of creating safe environments for yourself, I suggest that you don't make any big shifts or big decisions until you get some clarity and groundedness with a therapist. Is that fair, y'all? Last thing, and then we're going to go. How do we change? You got to own your actions, okay? Now, have things happen to you that help to create these patterns? Yes. But you have to own your actions. It's the regardless, y'all. The regardless of what's happened. Yes, we want to give some attention to that for sure. And you are just doing some stuff right now, regardless of why you doing it. Okay. And we got to own that. You have to own that. Own your actions, your beliefs, your mental and emotional patterns so that you can do something different. Ownership is empowering, okay? Ownership is empowering. I think it can feel heavy at first, right? Like, I got to do all of this, and it's just, another thing is my fault, and I got to do more things on my own. Okay. Ownership, though, ultimately is empowering. You can't do anything with something. It's not yours if you don't own it. So what can you do about it? Okay, so we gotta own it regardless of how you got here. Something that I personally really appreciate about my work is that I don't lean. I try to stay. I'm very intentional about staying balanced. Right? It's not about blaming you for having a victim mentality all the time. Okay, being like, you should be able to just move on. Like that's not healthy. That doesn't leave space for a real account of what has happened that has helped you to become that. And we also don't lean so far into all of the things that have happened to you, and you ain't no way out, and you just, damn. It's a balance. It's a balance. It's a balance. Both things are very important. So we got to own our actions and how you're co-creating unhealthy and unsafe relationships through your own behaviors. Okay? Your own beliefs, your own patterns, regardless of how you got that way. Things like prematurely attaching to people when you really don't know them like that and you're getting hurt consistently. Things like jumping ship when things get hard or too intimate, jumping to conclusions about people, making assumptions someone's going to leave you before you even have a conversation. Premature attachment thing, getting way too invested before you've really taken a look at the landscape of what you're stepping into. These are things that you're doing. Those are some examples, right? That are helping you to get negative results that you don't want. All right, y'all. This was I'm glad that I had to do this again.